So I'm here. My name is Deon Osborne with the Black Wall Street Times, and I'm here with Attorney Damario Solomon-Simmons with the Justice for Greenwood campaign seeking reparations for the destruction of the Greenwood community in 1921. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Deon. I'm so appreciative to be on with you today and the Black Wall Street Times. And of course, you guys as founder Nehemiah Frank doing awesome work. So I'm excited to be here to talk about this historic day that's coming up on May 2nd.
And so, to touch on that, what are some of the events taking place this week in Greenwood leading up to that court date?
Man, it's a lot of things happening. The community is really excited about, an opportunity to try to get justice for the first time in almost 101 years. Obviously, we're doing a lot of media like interviews like this. Thursday, we have a press conference with some community leaders who are going to discuss how the work that they're doing is specifically to support this litigation and support the remedies that we have in the litigation, and to make sure that the city of Tulsa knows and the defendants know that they are just as focused as we are at Justice for Greenwood to getting true justice, not just conversation, not just murals, not just trees. We want true accountability and true remedies. Then on Thursday night, we're doing a live town hall virtual event with some of our partners from around the nation, some of our national partners. And we're really excited about that. We have partners like Equal Justice Initiative for Brian Stevenson and Angela Rye and Roland Martin and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, all these different organizations that support us, Human Rights Watch. And so we're excited to continue to engage Color of Change, engage our community of national and local supporters. Then on Sunday, May 1st, we're having a prayer rally, 6:30 to 7:30 at the historic Mount Zion Baptist Church. Mount Zion, if anyone who's seen any of the pictures of Greenwood, one of the most tragic pictures of all is that beautiful black church that's burning from the top. That is Mount Zion. That church was burnt down to the ground. They had to rebuild their church and then pay off two mortgages at the same time, Deon. Two mortgages at the same time. So they're hosting our prayer rally, which we will also have in attendance the pastors and congregation of the 11 surviving churches from the massacre. So excited. And we will also actually have our survivors, our three living survivors. 107-year-old mother Viola Fletcher, who will be 108 on May 10th. Just let that sink in. She'll be 108 on May 10th. Then we have 107-year-old Leslie Benefield Random. And then we have Mother Fletcher, who's going to be 108, her little brother, Hughes Van Ellis, who's 101 years old. And that's from 6:30 to 7:30 at Mount Zion Baptist Church. And then obviously on Monday, the historic, unbelievable, necessary hearing that we're having, Monday, May 2nd at 1:30, where this may be the last time ever our three survivors will be in the same room together, fighting for justice. The last time they will have an opportunity to get in front of the judge. Our judge is Judge Caroline Wall. It's courtroom 605. Maybe the last time they're going to be in the room together in front of a judge, having an opportunity to have their case move forward. Now, I want to be real clear here, Deon. On Monday, May 2nd, at our court hearing, the judge is not going to decide if we get the remedies we're asking for. She's not going to decide if our public nuisance case is successful. All we're trying to do on Monday, May 2nd, 2022, is have the opportunity to prove our case. That's it. We just want the opportunity to prove our case. What the defendants, who the city of Tulsa, the Chamber of Commerce, the Tulsa County, Tulsa sheriffs, and others, what they're arguing is not only do they not believe we deserve anything, do we deserve any type of remedy? Do we deserve any type of abatement? Do we deserve any type of accountability? They don't believe we have the right to even ask for it. They don't believe we have the right to even be in court trying to get justice. They don't believe that these three living survivors should even be saying and asking for justice and accountability. That's what we're up against. That's what May 2nd is about. That's why we need the entire Black community behind us, supporting us, donating to this legal defense fund at justiceforgreenwood.org and our organization, showing up if you're in town, if you can make it to the courthouse, to stand with these survivors, because they're going to continue to hear some of the most vile and disgusting type things that we've heard from the defendants, such as they have no right to be here. They don't have any standing. They didn't lose anything. These are the things that they were saying about our survivors, and I want people to witness that directly.
I see. And, you spoke to a congressional subcommittee last year during the 100-year anniversary of the massacre.
Yeah.
What message were you trying to get across?
Well, just a couple of things. Number one, I wanted the world to see that out of the thousands of people that were impacted by the massacre, who suffered the massacre, who lost property, who lost homes, who were exiled from Tulsa, who lost loved ones, who lost millions and millions and millions of dollars. There's only 3 of those people left in the entire world that we know of. And I wanted the world to see those people. And I wanted the world to hear from those people directly, not from me as a lawyer and someone who's worked for 20 plus years on fighting for justice for Greenwood, not as an advocate, but to hear from the individual people that are left, so the world can hear, how much longer do I have to wait for justice? How much longer do I have to wait for accountability? How much longer do I have to wait for true restorative justice? And that's what was so important, that they got to hear, the world got to hear directly from Mother Fletcher, directly from Mother Randall, and directly from Hughes Van Ellis. They wanted the world to understand that all the centennial pomp and circumstance, if it did not bring reparations and restorative justice, it didn't mean anything. I wanted them to hear that directly from the survivors themselves. And that's exactly what they told them. Yes, you may have built City of Tulsa. You may have built a $30 million museum, but how does that improve the lives of Black Tulsans and survivors and descendants of the massacre? It does not. Yeah, you may have brought in and planted trees in memory of the massacre. How does that improve our lives? You may have bring up park benches and murals and speeches. How does that improve our lives? How does that restore what was lost? How does that make sure it doesn't happen again? Those are the things that we wanted to make clear at the congressional hearing.
I see. And, you're not just someone representing this community, you're also a member of this community. A lot of people don't realize that efforts to get justice for Greenwood have been going on for decades. Can you talk a little bit about why previous attempts failed and why you're confident that this time it will succeed?
Yeah. Deon, I really appreciate that question for a number of reasons. Number one, yes, I am the community. Okay, my family's been in Oklahoma since the 1830s. My family's been in North Tulsa almost 90 years. My wife is a lineal descendant of the massacre. My family has been involved in struggles here in Tulsa, going back to my grandparents on both sides, mother and maternal and paternal grandparents, fighting desegregation, being the first Blacks in both of their neighborhoods to buy homes and fight all of what was going on with desegregation. My Aunt Etna Cherry, who just passed away, unfortunately, helped desegregate Tulsa schools by being one of 8 or 9 Black kids at her middle school, and then at her high school, Roosevelt Middle School and Central High School. This is what we do. This is what we're about. And that's number one why I appreciate this question, because this impacts me directly. One of the reasons I went to, when I went to law school, one of my core goals was to come back to Tulsa. I had opportunities and job offers in Kansas City, job offers in DC, job offers and opportunities in Atlanta and LA. I specifically came back, not just to Tulsa, but to North Tulsa. And that's where I've been ever since I graduated law school in 2004. I've been here in North Tulsa, working on behalf of Black people, trying to get our civil and economic rights and our basic human rights. Our basic human rights. Secondly, to the second part of your question, and why I just really appreciate it. Black people in Greenwood has been fighting for justice for Greenwood since the massacre. Mm-hmm. When you had Black attorneys like the great B.C. Franklin filing lawsuits literally days after the massacre, working in a tent. It's a very famous picture. Maybe you can find it. I'm sure you've seen it. Very famous picture of B.C. Franklin, his law partner, and their clerk working in a tent with law books behind them because his law building and his home have been destroyed. So these people, my people, our people here in Tulsa have been fighting for 100 years plus. And then when you think about the efforts that happened when for 75 years, Deon, I know you know this, but I just have to emphasize, for 75 years after the massacre, the city of Tulsa, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, and the white power structure, they literally denied it happened. Are you with me? You feeling me? They literally denied that it happened, and they tried to cover it up, and they tried to keep it in silence. And of course, so many of our survivors and the victims of the massacre were afraid to talk about it. But there was always that few people. It was always those people that said, "No, we're going to keep this history going." And then once that broke through after 75 years of trying to hide it, then in the mid 90s, you had pioneers, great community leaders and representatives like Senator Maxine Horner and Representative Don Ross and so many others who came together and said, we need to get remedy for this before this goes for too long. And they were able to put together some legislation and bring forth the study of the Tulsa Race Riot, as they called it back then. That produced a groundbreaking historic document, a state document in 2001 that outlined the massacre, what they called the riot, and gave a real historical and official account of what happened. I cannot forget Eddie Faye Gates, the great Eddie Faye Gates historian who wrote books about this, who interviewed. Without her, we may not even have so many of the stories of survivors, because she herself, with her own money, with her own time, went and interviewed hundreds of survivors and their descendants and got those stories. So she recently just passed away here in the last few months also. I got to give it up for Eddie Faye Gates. That effort in 2001 led to the state of Oklahoma being told, you owe reparations. You owe payment to the survivors. You owe payment to the descendants. You owe payment to the community. You owe scholarships. You owe an appropriate memorial. You owe business opportunities for those who suffered. Did the state do that? No. Did the city do it? No. They fought it. That caused the great Johnny Cochran, Attorney Johnny Cochran, the great attorney, Professor Charles Ogletree of Harvard, and so many of the greatest civil rights attorneys of the time, at that time, to come together in what was called the Reparation Coordinating Committee. And these men and women, people like Michelle Roberts, who just retired from the National Basketball Association. She was the president of the Players Association, tremendous lawyers. My good friend Eric Miller, who's on this case, so many others, Willie Gary. They came to Tulsa. They filed a federal lawsuit. That lawsuit should have won. It should have been successful. You asked me, why was that not successful? That was not successful specifically for racism. There's nothing else. Period. They had the law behind them. They had the facts. And the court, the federal court here in Tulsa, said, hey, this was a bad thing that happened. It shouldn't have happened. I wish I could do something, but they should have brought the lawsuit around 1980. They waited too late. They waited too late. Now, I told you, Deon, we talked about for 75 years, they even denied it happened. Mm-hmm. But they tell these black men and women that they waited too late. You appealed that case. I was very fortunate as a young law student to be just sitting at the feet of these giants. Right? Can you imagine being a law student and here in Oklahoma, and next thing you know, there's Johnny Cochran, there's Charles Ogletree, there's Willie Gary, there's all these fantastic attorneys that I get to have, Audra Altour, I get the opportunity to interact with as a law student, and then as a baby lawyer when I graduate law school, get to join the team and travel back and forth to DC with these folks, help them in whatever small way that I could as a junior baby lawyer. It was amazing. We went all the way to the Supreme Court. 2005 Supreme Court says no, without comment. Now I always say that because, you know, the Supreme Court, when they decline a case, they don't have to say anything. They don't have to say why. They can just say no. So that's pretty common. But I just thought, man, these 80, 90, 100-year-old men and women up in D.C., outside the courthouse, asking for justice, and the court just says no, without comment. It's crushing, man. And then we tried the legislative route. We had legislation introduced in 2007 by the great John Conyers, Representative John Conyers, who's now an ancestor. And he introduced that legislation year after year after year after year after year after year after year to 2013. And it just kept not going anywhere. And our survivors kept dying. And we were getting down to 100 known, 75 known survivors, 50 known survivors, 25 known survivors, 10 known survivors. And now we're down to 3 known survivors. And we kept looking at what can we do? How can we do this? What can we do? We cannot allow this to just fall by the wayside. And I'll tell you, when we got to 2019, and that's when you saw the city of Tulsa, really it started, 2018, you saw the city of Tulsa really start saying, we're going to make money off the centennial. We know the world's gonna be watching, and we're gonna make a narrative that makes us look the best. And there's no one else can bring a lawsuit in their mind. There's no other opportunity for accountability and justice in their mind. So hey, let's just make money off this. Let's make money off this narrative. But they didn't know we were still in the background working. They didn't know we were still in the background searching and researching of what can be done. And we had notice of this opioid lawsuit State of Oklahoma filed. And what's important about that is the public nuisance statute. It's like, oh, okay, this is pretty powerful. And then you saw, and as that was moving forward, I started picking up the phone call and reaching out to some of the lawyers that was on the original team. And most of those, Johnny Conqueror's passed on. A lot of those lawyers have retired. Professor Charles Ogletree, unfortunately, has, he got Alzheimer's, tragedy. But I got in touch with Eric Miller, who I hadn't talked to in, probably 7-8 years. Called him and said, man, this is the idea. We got to try to do something. Got in touch with a couple more. And we just started researching. And we looked at this public nuisance deal. We think this can work. We think this can work. And we worked on that for over a year, just researching it, rewriting the petition, getting ready for it, pulling together our resources, pulling together our supporters, telling people in quiet, though. We were doing this in quiet, Deon. A lot of people didn't know we were doing this because we didn't want it to get out. And then when we filed that case on September 1st, 2020, it was amazing. It was a historic case. And people look at this lawsuit and they say, the facts are there. The law is there. I've been practicing law now 20 years. I've been involved in a lot of cases where I've been like, I believe the facts are on my side. I believe the law's on my side, and I'm still not successful. So I understand what I'm up against in this society, particularly as a civil rights attorney. But I feel good about our chances. I feel good about our opportunity to present a strong case. I feel good that if the law is followed, we should be able to move forward. And then I absolutely know we can prove our case and win a trial. I know that was a long answer, but I hope it answered your question.
It answered my questions that I already asked and some questions I was about to ask. One thing I think is on a lot of people's minds who may not, be from Tulsa, is that do you believe that if Greenwood is successful, that this could be a test case for other communities across the nation?
Absolutely. I think Greenwood is important to be successful for that very reason. We need a win in this space. We've never had a win in this space ever. And Greenwood gives us the very best opportunity because we actually do have living survivors. We do have a law that is very, very, we believe, favorable to the claims that we have. Mm-hmm. We believe that we have a strong, strong team. Then I think we can show other communities how you have to organize around very specifics, right? Many times we say, oh, we need reparations. Okay, that's a very, it's a large process. But we're talking about very specific. This is what we need, X, Y, and Z. Boom, 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 boom. We got it laid out. Then we have the community is involved. This is a community-led project from the very beginning. As you stated, I am the community, right? And from day one, it's about organizing your community together to be able to speak with one voice, This is what we want. And then how do you bring on the necessary experts and let them be experts? Don't bring, everyone is not an expert in everything. And I think what we've shown so well to the nation is how do you bring on a diverse group of individuals. When I say diverse, I'm not just talking about skin color. I'm talking about different expertise, and give them to be what I like to tell my team all the time: start in your role, right? So if your role is to be the community activist, then start in that role. You're not the lawyer. Don't try to be in a lawyer role. And the lawyer role should not be in the expert witness role. And the expert witness role should be in the journalist role, right? But everybody has a part to play. And that's why when we're successful and we take this blueprint from city to city, state to state, and we can show people based on their unique demographics, their unique set of laws, their unique circumstances, how you can be successful, how you can have a campaign that is not just about a legal case, because that's what we're talking about today, right? We're talking about the case on May 2nd. When you look at the holistic nature of our Justice for Greenwood Foundation and our work, it is beyond just a legal case. But how do you reconstitute a community that was destroyed and displaced? How do you bring back a community's history and narrative where they can have control of it and it cannot be exploited by those who actually did perpetrated the harm, or anyone else that wants to exploit the history? How can you say, no, this is our history, this is how we're going to document it, and if anybody's going to profit off of it, it should be us, right? Those are the things that we're talking about, and we're not just talking about. Those are the things that we're doing at the Justice for Greenwood Foundation. Those are the things that we're doing with our genealogy program, which we call We Are Greenwood. Those are the things that we're doing with our BTW initiative for our education and truth telling, because it all goes into restorative justice. It's not just restorative justice and what we get from those who are accountable for our destruction. That is important, and we will fight for that forever. But it's also important that we build ourselves up and we take back our narrative and take back the power that we can, because we can do that. We have to ask for the court and the judge to give us what we're asking for the court to do. Does that make sense, Deon?
Right. There's things that we can do ourselves without waiting on anyone else.
Absolutely. And we need to do that.
And so, at the end of the day, what are those specific things that you are demanding with this lawsuit? North Tulsa's life expectancy is roughly a decade less than the rest of Tulsa.
Yes.
Policing rates are 6 times worse on Black teens versus white teens.
Yes.
What is the reparations lawsuit demanding?
Right. Well, one thing I want to say too, our lawsuit is actually a public nuisance lawsuit. And why is that important? If you look at our lawsuit, I mean, reparations as a whole is a word. It's just the root word is repair. And reparations just means to repair what was broken, right? So in that sense, our lawsuit is a reparations lawsuit, right? But the legal claim, and this is what makes our claim unique, because in Oklahoma, and not every state has this, right? We're one of about 11 states that have this particular public nuisance law. In Oklahoma, what a nuisance is when something has been destroyed or broken, or there's been something that impacts someone's health, safety, or wellness, then that is a nuisance. So imagine an oil spill, right? An oil spills all throughout a river and it kills everything in the river. That's a nuisance, right? And imagine if that oil spill happened in 1921, like when the massacre happened. And that oil spill is still there, right? And it's still killing wildlife. It's still polluting the water. It's still shortening lifespans because it's causing cancers. That nuisance must be what's called abated, meaning that oil spill needs to be cleaned up. You need to put fish back in the river. You need to provide the necessary medical care, because the oil spill that you cause the cancer and the diabetes and the life expectancy to go down. That's the same analogy that we have here with our case, right? The massacre happened. It created nuisance that was never abated. And the nuisance from the massacre created additional nuisances, like you just talked about. The life expectancy in Tulsa for Black people is 10 to 15 years less than white people. So one of the things to fix that nuisance is a hospital. right? This stuff makes sense, right, Deon? It's very simple to understand. Oh, okay. You create a nuisance that lessens life expectancy, then we need healthcare, proper healthcare. And as you know, Deon, we do not have a hospital here in North Tulsa. We're the largest community in Northeast Oklahoma without a hospital. We need a hospital. Okay. Part of the nuisance of the massacre, we know that over 1,500 homes were destroyed. We know that over 200 businesses were destroyed. All right. Many of those homes were never rebuilt. We know that. Many of those businesses were never rebuilt. We know that. So what do you do? How do you abate that nuisance that you created? Well, you got to rebuild those homes. Mm-hmm. You got to rebuild those businesses. All right. Part of the nuisance was that you stole land from us. You took our valuable land and now you own it. Well, part of abating that nuisance is you return the land that you still own. I mean, it's just that simple. Mm-hmm. Part of the nuisance is, as you know, Deon, after the massacre, the white power structure, the city of Tulsa, the Tulsa Chamber, the Tulsa County, the Tulsa Sheriff's Office, they put together what's called a grand jury of all white men. And they said they were going to decide what happened during the massacre and who was to blame. Guess who they blamed, Deon? Did they blame the thousands of white men who were deputized by the city and the county to come over and destroy, loot, burn, kill? No. They blamed the black community. And also, they said one of the reasons that the massacre happened is because we didn't aggressively police these Negroes. And so the official policy of the city of Tulsa, pursuant to the grand jury report of June 25th, 1921, is for them to aggressively and rigidly enforce the laws against Negroes with utilizing white police officers. So Deon, you and I both know that still happens to this very day, that the Tulsa Police Department is a very racist organization that terrorizes black people in Tulsa each and every day. The statistics bear that out, right? The statistics show that black people are shot 3 to 5 times more than white people in Tulsa, that we're arrested 2 to 3 times more often. We're fined 2 to 3 times more often. We're sent to prison more than anybody else in the state, black people, particularly black women. So part of the nuisance, part of the abatement of that nuisance is our judge saying we invalidate what this grand jury report says. It is no longer valid. This is the new way we're going to police. Those are just some of the things that we're asking for, very specific things that we're asking for, as far as rectifying this nuisance. Deon, to this very day, the city of Tulsa has not said, you know what? We did this. We're sorry for this. And we need to fix this. They never said that. They never said those 3 things together. And one of the things that we're asking for in our lawsuit is called a declaratory judgment. We're asking the court to be able to specifically state what happened during the massacre and who's responsible. And a lot of people say, well, why is that important? It's important to our survivors. It's important to our descendants and our community to be officially stated who did what, who's responsible, and why they should pay, why they should abate, why they should fix. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Would you say that the city of Tulsa has been gaslighting the community for 101 years?
Oh, man. Gaslighting at the highest level. I mean, when the city of Tulsa and its white and black power structure that I ain't gonna say black power structure. I'm gonna say the white power structure that put some black faces out front to make things look good. When they spent the last 2 or 3 years up to the centennial with hashtags Tulsa Triumphs. Mm-hmm. How does Tulsa Triumphs have anything to do with Justice for Greenwood? When they want to tell you that Greenwood is rising, well, because they own all the valuable property in Greenwood. Everything that's been built in Greenwood is owned by white people, right? Owned by the same basic power structure that destroyed Greenwood. They make all the money. They make all the revenue. while Black community continues to suffer, continue to have terrible roads, terrible schools, terrible healthcare, terrible policing, but they want to say Greenwood is rising. Okay, this is the biggest gaslight of all time. The biggest gaslight of all time. They want to raise $30 million for a museum and not give one penny to the three living survivors and all the descendants of those who they destroyed. And then when we ask them, well, can you at least at the bare minimum give a 33% of all your revenue, push it back over to the Black community and the descendants? And they say no. It's the biggest gaslighting of all time. When the mayor of Tulsa, G.T. Bynum, comes out and says, oh, reparations divides the community. Wait a minute. I thought you said this was about equity and restorative justice. Okay, so it divides the community. You didn't have a problem giving COVID relief funds, city dollars for COVID relief. You didn't ask the community about that. You just did it because you thought that was the right thing to do. But when it comes to repaying Black people for what you, not G.T. Bynum, he wasn't alive at the time, but you, the city of Tulsa, which was alive at the time, which caused the damage. Oh, that's a problem. You see where I'm going here?
I see. And so, one of my last questions for you is, why is it important for people in the community to show up at these events and at the May 2nd court hearing?
The main thing is to show support to these survivors. I mean, at the end of the day, we're fighting for our entire community. We're fighting for all the community of descendants throughout the nation. But we have three living survivors. They're special. They're special. That's it. And they're showing up. They're showing up. I mean, Uncle Red is flying in from Denver. They're showing up. And so it means so much to them to see that they have the community of folks there supporting them, physically supporting them, standing with them as they stand, as they fight at 107, at 101. I think that's the most important thing. Like, people who believe in Justice for Greenwood and want to stand with survivors, this is your opportunity. This may be the only time ever to be in a courtroom supporting these people. So when they look around, they know, wow, these people took off work. These people took off school. These people took out of their busy life to come here, even for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just to say, hey, I'm here with you. I believe in you. That's why I think it's the most important.
Well, Attorney Damario Solomon-Simmons, I really appreciate the time that you gave us today. We'll definitely be blasting these events, and we'll be joining you at these events, including the court hearing. And we look forward to a successful day on May 2nd.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys at Black Wall Street Times. You guys have been with us as a partner from day one, and I just appreciate your audience, appreciate your work, Deon, and just let's just make this happen, man. It's history in the making. I'm glad you're going to be there to document it for us. Anyone else want any more information, they can go to justiceforgreenwood.org. We're going to be posting things, our Instagram pages. So, man, I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
All right.
No problem.
Peace.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Your ear.